Hey ladies, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the caption of the video, today we're going to be doing an almond shaped full set with some croc print and French tips. So stay tuned for that. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, let's get into this tutorial. So you want to make sure that you are pushing back your client's cuticles and exposing the entire nail. And then we are taking our cone shaped drill bit and just going around the entire cuticle area. This pretty much just cleans out from underneath that cuticle, all of that new growth, getting rid of that nitty gritty and just preparing it for the acrylic application. Of course, this does not need too much speed or too much pressure. It just is to, like I said, simply get all of that out, all that nitty gritty, all of that, what was under there. And now we are going over the entire nail, left to right, top to bottom, lightly with our 180 sanding band. This is really important because this just eliminates the natural shine, gets all of those natural oils off. And this is super, super important because that natural oils that are left on the nail will prevent the acrylic from bonding to the nail, you guys. So you just want to make sure that you are doing that. And like I said, you do not need a lot of pressure. You want to make sure you're keeping that drill moving. You're not applying too much pressure. You don't want to burn your client. Just simply run it across the natural nails and make sure that it gives off, make sure the entire nail has like that dusty look. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we are doing almond shapes. So I went ahead and cut them down to the length she wanted. And then you just simply are cutting off the corners of the nails. You don't want to cut too much, but you don't want to cut too little because it'll just make your filing more of a job. So as you've seen, I just simply cut the corners, and then now I'm taking my 80 grit file and I'm starting off by filing the sides at a rounded angle. So what I mean by that is I literally am taking my file and I am angling it towards the tip of the center of the nail, and I'm just rounding it, you guys. Like, almond might seem hard, but it's actually one of the easiest shapes to do. It just takes a while because of course you have to make sure all of the nails match as far as the tip and making sure they're even, but it is harder to explain than it actually is to do. So as you can see, like, I'm just taking my file and I'm pointing it inward towards the center of the nail, and I am filing, making sure, of course, to get a crispy shape, but you want to make sure that you're keeping it angled. And a very important step when doing almond is to make sure that you are bouncing back and forth from side to side. Do not file one side and then try to go to the other, because then you will see that you in the end will just have filed off too much of one side. I've seen that happen so many times, and I literally used to do that all the time, you guys. So it really has helped me to bounce back and forth from side to side and just kind of take my time. That way I take off just enough and not too much, because you don't want the nail to look like a cat nail or like a chicken nail. You want to make sure that they still have some nail, they want almond, so that's just rounded. And I know a lot of people do their almonds different, so you do kind of have to adjust per client. But this client that we are working on today, she doesn't like super pointy whatsoever. She doesn't like any sharpness to them. She just likes them rounded like an almond. So I do have some clients that like them like rounded, and then at the very tip we do just a slight point, but that's very rare. Most of my clients that get almond just get this simple round shape. And as you can see, it's just the same steps over and over. You do sometimes want to go back to the previous nails and just look at them again to make sure that they are in fact even, and that the tips are all going not in the same direction. Obviously they're going in the same direction, but you just want to make sure that one isn't slightly pointing to the left or pointing to the right. And you want to make sure sometimes when you're moving kind of fast, you can leave a little bit of sharpness on the points as well. So you do just want to make sure that y'all are filing them evenly. And another easy way to check this is to flip your client's hand around and see the way that the nails are pointing when they're pointing upwards. And that is a really easy way to correct your shape and see if one is off or one is slanted or more to the left, more to the right. But that's a super easy thing to fix. You'll of course just take your file and kind of file over top of what needs to be filed. but the almond shape is pretty easy to achieve, you guys. As you see with every nail, I just start on one side and I file a little, keeping it at a rounded angle. And I just hop back and forth from side to side. As you can see here, I do have some pointed areas, so I'm just going with my file and kind of rounding those off, just to make them more of an almond shape. And of course, I know I already mentioned this, but just remember, you do not want to take too much off because you do still have to file them in the end after the acrylic, so just keep that in mind. Now we're going ahead and blending in the nail with the natural nail. This is important because it helps prevent lifting, you guys. So once again, as mentioned earlier, and as always, you never ever want to apply pressure or leave the file in one spot when you are working with the e-file. It will cause friction, and that will cause your client's hands and fingers, not hands necessarily, but fingers, to burn. And of course, you can mess up the nail bed. So you just want to make sure that you are, just lightly going over the nail tip and blending it in. You do not have to go over top the entire nail tip. That is totally optional. The main focus here is just where the natural nail and the nail tip meet. You don't have to blend it in to where it's completely gone. You just want to blend it in, and that will definitely help with preventing lifting. And going over the nail tip, I do that because it just helps with the adhesion of the acrylic, in my opinion. Some would disagree, but I do it because I think that it does. And so now I'm using my Mia Secret dehydrator, and this just helps get rid of those natural oils one more time. This can be found off Amazon. 10 out of 10, totally recommend it. And now I'm using my Young Nails Protein Bond, and this is exactly what it is, Protein Bond. It helps with the bonding of the acrylic to the natural nail. I don't show that I do 2 layers, but I always do 2 layers on each hand. That's totally optional, but I just feel like not only has it helped my, retention, but it's improved my retention. So I recommend it, but it's totally optional. At least one. You have to do at least one. But 2 is optional. I do it. I recommend it. And now we're on to the application process. So as you can see, I had already done the pinky. I don't know what happened to that footage, but that's near here nor there. So we're going to just start with what we have. So this client wanted to do a milky white base, and then she wanted to do a white French tip. That has been really trendy, so I'm sure you guys have seen that, you know what I'm talking about. But the white acrylic I got from Sugar and Cream, I cannot remember the exact name, but if you would like to know, just comment down below and I can get the name for you. And usually with all of my sets, I do about 3 to 4 beads. I know every nail tech has their own method, and even, some nail techs have different methods per, depending on the shape or the length or the acrylic they're using, but I typically like to use either 3 or 4 beads. Now, I say that because I use that as kind of like a base. Sometimes I have to use a little bit more, and, sometimes I don't even have to use that much, but I always say it's better to work with smaller beads, like work smaller first, because it's much easier to go back and add on acrylic than it is to have to take the time to file it off in the end. So I like to start at the base of the nail and just work my way up. As you can see right now, I am making sure to carefully and delicately wipe the skin and around the cuticle area, and this just makes sure that there's no acrylic on the skin and that everything is nice and flush with the cuticle, and that will really help with retention and preventing lifting. If you get any acrylic on the skin or any acrylic that floods the cuticles, meaning it's over the cuticles or too far past the cuticles, it will lift 100%. No matter how good your prep was, your nails will lift. So you just want to make sure that you are keeping that acrylic strictly on the nail tip and the natural nail. No matter how clean I feel like my application was, I always wipe around the cuticle area and I always wipe around the skin. And so now, as I said earlier, I like to take my first bead and just place it at the lower part of the nail. And you don't want to apply pressure when, moving your acrylic. You just want to simply hold the finger downward and let gravity pretty much do its thing. You just want to feather the acrylic down. You do not want to apply pressure. You don't want to wipe, but you don't want to drag or pull, because all that's going to do is cause the acrylic to get stuck in your brush, and then your brush will be clogged, and that's a whole nother story, whole nother mess for a whole nother time. So the cleaner that you work, the easier, the set will be, the easier the filing process will be, the smoother everything will go. So don't rush, but just definitely keep that in mind. It's kind of like cooking. You know how people say clean as you go? It's kind of like the same with nails. You want to clean and make sure everything is neat as you go. That way in the end, it's just simple as file and do your design. Remembering that has definitely helped me with my nail journey. So that's why you will see me, constantly going over the shape of the nail with the brush just to keep it all intact, keep it in place. And as far as the cuticle beads go, I know I already told you guys, to wipe around the skin and wipe around the cuticles, but when placing the bead, you want to make sure that you are not placing it right at the cuticle or too close to the cuticle, because it will cause that flooding that we were talking about. And also, when you do start to feather that acrylic down, it will push up slightly and it will fall into place. So you just want to place it right above the bead that you place before the cuticle bead. So in this instance, I used 3 beads. I did the tip, I did at the apex, and I did at the cuticle. So you want to make sure that that cuticle bead is placed right above that apex bead. And as I said, you want to just gently feather it down, because as you do feather it, it will push it up just as much as you need it to. And so another thing I want to mention is that a lot of people mistakenly think that as long as your nails are thick, that they will not break. And that is totally not true. You want to make sure that you are focusing on the apex as much as possible. That is like the heart of the nail. So where I just placed the bead is going to be the most important part of the nail. As long as your foundation is built up there, the rest will do its job. And what I mean by that is, if you are placing your beads where they should, and you are, feathering the acrylic down, you are not applying too much pressure, you're following everything that I'm pretty much saying, it will build up a perfect foundation and your apex will be exactly where it needs to be. So as long as you're 99% of the time when a nail breaks, it's going to be at that apex. And if it does that, sometimes you do have clients that are pretty rough on the nails, or just so happens that that's where it broke. But usually, like I said, 99% of the time, when a nail breaks, it's going to break at the apex. And if it does break at the apex, that is because there was not enough foundation there. There was not enough acrylic. It was not built up enough. So you don't ever see anybody's nails break at the cuticle part. And usually if it breaks at, closer to the free edge, it's with longer nails. But even still then, as I mentioned, once you are placing the beads where they need to be, as you feather it down, that extra that gets feathered towards the free edge of the nail or the tip of the nail, it will build up just as much as it needs to. And always, always go back and check, look at your client's nails from different angles. Look at your client's nails from different points of view, because it will show you if you need to add more acrylic. And there's never, ever anything wrong with adding acrylic. I always tell people on my videos and, people that come and do nail classes that adding acrylic is better than not having enough. I don't care what anyone says. I will add acrylic all day if I have to, because I know that makes, that's making my foundation when it needs to be. So you don't want to just completely start off with using a whole blob of acrylic or 10, 11 beads, because that's just unnecessary. You don't want to waste product. This stuff is expensive, trust me, I know. So you do just want to make sure that you are starting, I usually say medium sized beads, not too small, because then you're going to be taking forever, but not too large, because then you're going to be pressuring yourself to get that bead where it needs to be in enough time, and that's just can sometimes become a mess. So just work with medium-sized beads and try to start off with doing about 3 to 4 beads. If you need to add more, as you see, I do go back and add just a small bead right at the apex area. And that's totally fine. Her nails turned out perfect in the end as far as foundation and apex. And if I would not have done that, it might have been a different story. So never feel like going back to add acrylic, feels like, oh, I just can't get it. Like, I just don't know what I'm doing, or my foundation just is not where it needs to be. Realizing that you need to add more acrylic shows that you are on the right path as far as application, the acrylic application process goes. A lot of people just feel like, oh, the nail's covered, I'm good to go. That is not the case. So, be easy on yourself, because like I said, just because you need to add acrylic, or you feel like, oh, this nail's kind of thin, the fact that you can notice that and point that out says a lot about you as a nail tech. So constructive criticism is always needed, no matter how good you are, because there's always somebody out there that might do it different, or that might do it, better, or whatever you want to say. And, in the end, you can never learn too much. Everything helps. So that's enough of that TED Talk. As you can see, I went ahead and moved to the thumb. And so it's the same process here. Normally with thumbs, I do have to use a little bit more acrylic just because they are wider. So I do use, a lot of that product more so on the width of the nail rather than the length, but not like a crazy amount. It just usually requires me to use an extra bead or two, which is totally okay. And as you can see here again, I'm wiping around the shape of the nail, keeping that shape. It does save so much time in the end as far as filing, because you pretty much do your shaping in the beginning when you're doing your prep. So if you're keeping that nice and clean in the end, you'll just have to clean it up rather than completely reshape the nail. And so as you can see right here, this is a perfect example of how I said pushing the acrylic up feathering the acrylic down will cause the acrylic to kind of push up a little bit, and that is exactly what it did. Now you might find yourself sometimes in a situation where you do have to just slightly use the tip of your brush to push it closer to the cuticle area, and that's totally okay, because then when you use it to wipe around the cuticle and the skin, it will clean it back up. So that is a good tip to remember, that the tip of your brush is for pushing the acrylic and the body of your brush is for feathering it down. So that's just a good tip to remember. I feel like once I learned that, it kind of helped me a lot as far as, not clogging my brush and not using the wrong area for the wrong things. Because when I first started, you guys, I was buying a new brush probably once or twice a month, which is actually pretty crazy. Now this brush that I'm using actually is my favorite, and I know that the time is nearing where I'm going to have to throw it away, but I've been using this brush for 2 years and I literally love it so much. It's funny because I just ordered another brush from the same place, same size, literally same exact brush, and it's so much bigger. And that just shows me that I've used it for so long that so many bristles have fallen out. But I just love it so much, you guys. So I don't know. But more of the story is, when you learn how to use your brush, it'll stick with you. And you do want to invest in a good brush. I know Amazon has some good starter brushes, but those are just simply that, starter brushes. They'll do the job for about a month or so. But eventually, you're going to have to get another one. And that's why I say investing in your brush is very important. I think the brush that I used was about $60, but when you're using that brush for 2 years, that's an amazing price. And yeah, I got this brush from Sugar and Cream, actually. So I really love them as a brand and as a company. You guys should really check them out. No, this is not an endorsement or a brand deal. They don't even know I exist. I just love them so much. So here we go with the finished product of the application. As you can see, super nice and clean. That is why I say to make sure you work clean, because it'll save so much time, as you'll see in these following clips. So now I'm just taking my file and I'm going back over that shape, and I don't have to do too much because, like I said, I kept it nice and clean during the application. So that's pretty cool. And you're just going to simply follow along that original shape, just cleaning it up a little bit. And this time you do want to make sure that you're getting on the undersides of the nails, because a lot of people tend to forget that And that really matters. That can make or break a set. Like, foundation is everything. And foundation isn't just the acrylic part, it's the shaping, it's the filing, the buffing. Like, all of that really, really matters. The prepping, because I always say this, no matter how cute your design is, if the nails aren't up to par in every other aspect, it doesn't matter. Like, I would much rather have a solid set of nails than a solid, like, ugly or solid, like, plain set of nails than a very detailed, very designed, wonky set of nails, if that makes sense. Because no matter how cute them nails are, the shape and the foundation and everything else is not there, girl, them nails are going to be gone. They're going to be breaking off. They're going to be lumpy. They're going to be fat. They're going to be uneven. And we can't have that. Not in 2023. So, yeah, you just want to make sure that you are keeping up and paying attention to all of the foundation aspects of nails, because that can make or break a set, like I said. And one of those small little detailed things is filing the undersides of the nails. And so you don't want to do too much. You just want to simply make sure that it's nice and straight underneath there, because when you're doing your acrylic application, especially when you are going back over the shape, this is just for any shape also, not even just almond, but for any shape in general. You know, as you seen, I was taking my brush and following around the nail after applying each bead or every other bead, whatever. That can cause some acrylic to, you know, kind of go up under there. And that can cause some little lumps under there. Also, when filing, it can get a little rigid, especially when you're using a file as sharp as the one that I'm using. So you just want to keep that in mind. And make sure that you are remembering to file the undersides. You do want to also make sure that you are pulling your client's skin back, you guys. That is so important. When you are filing, especially when you're using an 80 grit file, that is super sharp, and it will only take one wrong little, you know, up and down, and your client's cut. And it's the worst feeling. Literally, it makes me want to gag thinking about it, y'all. It's the worst feeling. And I don't know about how anybody else feels, but I feel like it takes so long to heal. And every little thing that touches it feels disgusting. Like, I hate it so bad. I hate it so bad. So make sure you're pulling your client's skin back when you're filing, because you do not want to make them go through that. So boom, this is how they look. I'm just going back over them, making sure that they are nice and straight. And now we're going to move on to the e-file. So this is very important for two reasons. One, when doing the filing with our e-file, we are sealing the cuticles, and we are also smoothing out the entirety of the nail, making sure that it's all nice and even, which if you have a smooth application, your nails 9 times out of 10 will already be smooth, but it doesn't hurt to just go back over and, you know, get all of that. Like, this is like officially making sure they're all nice and even, you know, because no matter how good you are, sometimes you might have a little gap or a little lump or bump. And also with almond nails, because of the, you know, it goes from being so wide at the top to so narrow at the tip, it can sometimes seem like, which I should have mentioned this during the acrylic process, but it's okay if you know it now. It can sometimes seem like, wow, I don't have enough acrylic on the tip. I don't have enough acrylic on the tip. And honestly, you guys, you'll know, you know, if it's bendy at all, or if it's like really like translucent or whatever, then of course, yeah, you don't have enough. But, it can sometimes seem like there's not enough, and once you file the entire nail, it will all even out. I've learned that with almond nails. I can't really explain it, but trust me, use your file and you'll see what I mean. And as far as the sealing the cuticle, this is really, really important. This helps prevent lifting. When your client comes back for that fill-in, it will help the nail still be intact, still on the natural nail. It won't, the acrylic will not be lifted or break. You know, it will be exactly how it needs to be. Now, you don't want to file your client's cuticle. You just want to make sure that you're going from left to right and getting in the crease, making sure that it's all nice and solid. It's laying down. It should look very flush with your client's skin. It should look like it grew right out of your client's nail bed, honestly. So that's a good tip. If you have any lumps or bumps, go back. And now this is one of the easiest, probably the easiest step, honestly, besides pushing the cuticles back in the beginning. This is just buffing. You can get like a 35 or 100 pack of these. I don't even know. It's from something crazy off of Amazon for super cheap. And I just use one per client, of course. I use one side for one hand and one side for the other. You literally just want to make sure that you're buffing the entire nail, top and bottom, side to side. And then I always put oil over my clients' cuticles and on the undersides of their nail, have them wash them with soap and water, and we get to going with the design. The buffing helps get rid of anything that may be left from the filing or the e-file also. I wanted to mention that. It gives you like a clean, smooth base. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing a white on white French tip, or I guess I should say white on milky white French tip. And so this is kind of the same process as when you're doing French tip on like regular, like a square or a coffin. Now granted, there are a few steps that you don't really have to do. I don't know how any other people do it, but usually when I do it on my square or coffin nails, I outline like the sides first and then I start with my tip. But with most of my fingers here, if not all of them, usually I just start on the sides. I don't take it down the full side of the nail all the time, but I just kind of go right into making my French. And so you want to just make sure that you're starting on one side and going ahead and making your first curve, and then you want to go to the other side of your nail and just connect it. And the slower, well, not necessarily the slower, but the less polish that you work with, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, the slower you go, the easier and more precise your French will be. It's so easy for your hand to twitch, or for that brush to just go the wrong way, or for you to drag it and it's going so straight and then boom, it just does whatever. So that's why I work pretty slow. As you can see, that French turned out perfect, and I'm going to do it again on this side. So as you can see, like on this finger, I did go ahead and bring the polish all the way down. Most of the time I do that, but on almond nails, it really just depends on the flow of my hand. So, but normally I do always recommend drag it down the sides first. But like I said, I did not do that on some of the fingers, but it's okay. So I went ahead and just made sure that both sides were even again, as far as where I started the French at. And I went ahead and connected them, and I'm just making sure to add polish as I go. You don't want it looking too thin or too opaque. It is good to work with minimal polish, when doing it, but you do want to make sure that when you're going to fill it in, you get a good amount of polish to make sure that the polish is nice and thick. And then I just go ahead and take that same brush and I fill it in. I do make sure that I'm double checking to make sure that the French is exactly how I want it to be and even. Sometimes after doing this for so long, it might look like, oh yeah, that's good, move on to the next one. So if you feel that way, even still after you do the next finger or before you put it on the dryer, just take another look, because it's just better to be safe than sorry. And almond Frenchies are actually one of my favorite things to do. I don't know, they're just so satisfying. They look so good because the French matches the almond like right underneath of it. I don't know, it's just a vibe. And as you can see, I did mess up just a little bit, so I just easily take a small art brush or cleanup brush, whatever you want to call it, and I dip it in acetone. And you don't want the acetone to be super runny. That is a no, because then it's going to drip and it's going to fall down into the rest of your polish. So I dip it in acetone and I pat it on a piece of paper towel just to, dry it out just a little bit, but make sure that the brush is still wet. And then I just go in and carefully clean up whatever it was that I messed up. Super easy fix. Now sometimes I do feel like I just want to go ahead and redo the entire nail, which is okay, but that trying to fix it with the cleanup brush is much easier, because as you can see with the last finger, I did, I fixed it, but I did take off a little too much. But that's okay, because it's easier to pick my brush up and just go right back in with the polish and fill it all in. So rather than wipe it off and completely do the French. And when I first started, you guys, believe it or not, I have been doing nails for 4 years. Well, it's about to be 4 years. And I literally sucked at French tip. Like, it was to the point when somebody would book it, I would literally like try to convince them to do another style, or only do French tip on a finger or two. Like, I hated it so much. I went back and forth between doing French tip with polish, doing French tip with acrylic. Oh no, now I want to do it with polish. I like could not figure out what I wanted to do. I just sucked at it. And the French tip with acrylic, honestly, I don't hate doing it, but I hate doing it. Like, it just is so much more time consuming. And I feel like once you get the French tip with the polish down, you can make it look just as clean. Like, I know a lot of nail techs, switched over to doing French tip with the acrylic because it looked so clean. But once you get it down with the polish, it can look just as clean. It's all just about knowing yourself as a nail tech when you do your French, because that was, I think, what made me hate my French tip. I used to have my French, like my curve, up so high, you guys. It was atrocious. Like, why is your French tip covering 3/4 of the nail? Like, it was bad. So I just started to like kind of remind myself as I would do each set, because I used to just forget. I was in such a habit of just boom, connect the Frenches and keep on going, that I would forget. No, you have to also pay attention to the depth, the deepness of the French. And once I reminded myself every set, hey, make sure that you take it down some, I started to fall in love with my French tip. Now, if somebody wants it super, super deep, like barely any, cool. If somebody wants more, cool. I always go off of the picture. I always, double check after I do the first French tip, like, hey, this look good. And, most of the time they say yeah. Sometimes they say they wanted a little less, and sometimes they say I want a little more. So, the number one goal here is to make sure that your clients are leaving out with everything that they want. So I don't film the thumb because I think you guys pretty much get the picture, and feel free to rewind and go back and look at these 4 fingers. I feel like that's more than enough of a visual aid. So we're going to go ahead and move on. So you do want to go ahead and dry those, and then you want to go ahead and top coat those. So now we are working with cured top coated nails. So now we're going to move on to the CROC print, and I just take my very thin nail art brush, and what I do is create the little thin lines. So you don't want to work with too much polish, because when there's too much polish, not only are the lines really thick, but they do start to drip into each other, which you will see that happen. So you just want to make sure that you're getting a little bit of polish on the very tip of your art brush, and you just want to simply dab and do your lines. I like to do the middle first. The pinky is smaller, so I do the sides first, but I do the middle, right down the middle, the center of the nail first, and then I go ahead and fill in each side. French tip is one of the, I'm sorry, not French tip, CROC print is one of the easiest things to do. Like, literally when I do it, my clients are like, wow, that's all it is? Like, yeah, girl, that's all it is. But it's super easy. You just want to make sure, like I said, that you are working with minimal polish, because it will start to, depending on how quick you move or like the temperature of the room, the polish will sometimes, or can sometimes, like start to blob together, the lines, if you use too much, because it's runny a little bit. So just keep that in mind. But it's super easy and super quick, and I really love this design. I tell all my clients this, like, I'm on CROC print so bad right now. I would do it every single client, and I would come up with mass different ways to do it, but I just love it so much. Like, I don't know. I love it with the blooming gel, and I love it with the powder. Like, I don't know. I'm just in love with it. And as you can see, it's just pretty simple. Like, I'm literally just flying through it. It's nothing hard. You just want to, dab your little lines. Now, you don't want them to be blobs. You don't just want to blob a thing of polish on there. You do want to kind of drag it just a little bit so it looks like a line. And as this polish is still wet, you want to just pour some clear acrylic over top, not too much, just literally enough to cover the lines. And then you do want to tap the fingers for the excess to fall off, and have your client carefully cure them. They're not dry until they cure them. Literally. After you pour that powder, straight into the dryer. And then once they come out, I didn't show this part, but you do want to go ahead and dust off all of the nail, and you want to kind of take your time dusting, because sometimes some acrylic can get kind of stuck in between the creases. So you just want to make sure that you're dusting. And we did decide to go ahead and add some jewels, so I just used my Macart my Macart rhinestone glue, and I just put a little bitty dab on each finger. We're going to place them in the center of the cuticle, and I am doing like a medium-sized jewel and then a very small jewel underneath. So that's why I just said just a bitty dab. and I use my dotting tool to place the jewels. I just kind of put a little bit of rhinestone glue on the tip and place the jewels, make sure they're even, and cure them. And this is the finished result. I am so in love with these. I love these so much. I'm going to say it a million times. I love these. I love these. Chef's kiss. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You should go try it on a client, do some different color mashes, and tag me. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you ladies in the next video. Peace.